It is time for the Brazilian and EU showdown. Once again, I feel like we've been having showdowns left, right, and center, but this is going to be none other than Team Liquid taking on G2. Now, casting our minds back to the games that we had yesterday, Team Liquid lost versus W7M 5-7. And taking a closer look at these results and statistics, considering the fact that they have a player and, the influence, rather, of Volps backing them, should they have won that match versus W7M?
Yeah, they did really struggle in that game against W7M. It was actually Liquid having two completely different games up to this point so far. First, they played Reven, they 7-0'd them, playing with their food, and then they struggled against W7M, despite indeed, as you mentioned, having that player on the roster that can give them that insight on how the enemy team plays. And you can see that they did create that man advantage for themselves in numerous amount of rounds, but they were unable to hold on to that, and they did also struggle with some of these explosive takes that really came out on the side of W7M.
Now, how about when we cast our minds to the side of G2? X, what can you tell me about them?
Well, we can think about G2, and obviously they beat M&M. It was a very close game, 8-7 going all the way. Obviously, EU versus EU matchup, so you're expecting them to be very well versed onto one another. So, yes, G2 have had a win. They have also had a loss. They also lost to Space Station, and that was a pretty bad one. That was over on Bank, 7-3. So, very mixed performance. Quite similar, really, in some ways, to Liquid coming into this one. One thing that I would like to preface this whole thing with is that the last time that G2 actually beat Liquid was all the way back in 2018. The most recent time that these two teams have played was, of course, in Charlotte, where Liquid were victorious. So, bit of a rocky road, historically, for G2 here.
Now, going back to the point that you made against, G2 facing off versus SSG, Doki himself actually yesterday in the interview had kind of mentioned, if it was a best of 3, it wouldn't have even been close. We would have wiped the floor with them. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe best of 3s is where they're going to look to feel more comfortable. Will they feel comfortable enough to take this victory in the best of 1s, especially as we take a look at the veto, Anne?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you have map vetoes or two teams playing off against each other where stylistically their map pool doesn't really fit one another. There's maps where G2 is really good at that obviously will get banned out by Liquid. And there's maps that Liquid are really good at, but then that's not really a high preference map for G2, or G2 aren't really that good at this map. We ended up on a map like Border. There is no info on how Liquid has played this map in 2023 yet, but G2 they played it in the upper bracket of the EUL deciders against M&M. They were victorious, and they also really succeeded on their defenses there.
Well, basing this off of gut instincts, I'm curious to see what Inter and Fluke have to say about this one.
Hi, your parents are here. We've come to get a school review on how the kids are doing. We have 10 very naughty children ahead of us.
That's certainly a way of putting it, yeah. 10 very naughty children.
Yeah.
What about Fabian? Is he a naughty little boy?
The naughtiest. There's so many reports. Yeah, I'm going to cast alongside you. Obviously, there's been a little bit of a rotation in the talent. Pengo is fine.
Nicholas Pickles.
Nicholas Pickles, as he's known in the inner circle.
That's what we call him in the biz.
Only his friends can call him that, though. So if you see him out on the streets and you call him that, don't be surprised if he hits you. He is going to be helping our desk by filling in, giving some big
What a
grades.
nice guy.
He's just so giving. So instead, I have to step in. I have to.
I was going to say, are you joining me or am I joining you? Technically, how
I
does
think
it?
this was your cast originally.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who cares?
Who knows these days?
No one in the audience does.
Nobody, none of you.
Border, G2 versus Team Liquid. Now you have, we've both been around the blocks for a while.
A lot of blocks.
A lot of blocks. And what they've built is this scene. But although there's a lot of history between G2 and Liquid, the last time they played, it was technically a 3 versus 3 in terms of these rosters. There's been changes since. It was all the way back in Charlotte.
Yeah. And Liquid enter this matchup, I think it's fair to say, looking like one of the sharpest teams here at the event. They have cruised on through. G2 had a lot more adversity. They've had to deal with some lumps. Both these teams find themselves in a position where a win is mighty important.
Is he still talking about Fabian? The lumps.
Togepi Flores, the two attackers, banned out Kaid and Mira. No Azami ban, no Solus ban. I expect that Azami will be played every single round.
Oh, yeah. If she's there, she's going to be brought. you're looking at border as well. It's such a thin map. The destruction can go from corner to corner. The fights are going to be pacey, and that's that sort of point of concern, because the last two maps you had, it was club, it was border, it was G2's choice. They opted here, and gunfights have not been their forte in this tournament so far. They've struggled, I think, a better sort of way. You look at Alamau, hasn't quite been able to get his teeth into. Doki has had a hit day and then a miss day. And it's this back and forth of a roster where they used to be terrifying, sort of this like five-fingered slap across the face of anyone's defense, whereas, Palu and Nesk, they're playing pretty good this tournament so far. With them popping off and Virtus Pro popping off, it's sort of like, wait, what year is this? Where are we?
I'm enjoying it. You speak specifically about Alamau. He enters as the lowest rated player of all 10 of the players in our server right now, which obviously is not good for the role that he is in. He's actually below Blur, who's usually the basement dweller for G2. In regards to the highs on this squad, Benjamaster, the highest rated player on their team, and even then it's not very impressive. So G2 just not getting it done as a team. Different story for Team Liquid, obviously. Palu has consistently been one of the best players at all the events he's been in. This one is no different.
Ooh, they're trying to find the catch there. We talked about the Azami before and how much that they can waste, and this is the best place to waste it. Nesk wastes Blur. And you were highlighting the player that can try and get the kit down. He's not going to get anything more than the Selma you hear popping off in the background. There is Volps with a swing round. Virtue did get at least a little bit back, but now they've lost not only the front, but the back end of that push. Virtue, he's caught a bit in the middle. He's going to see if he can try and pick up some pace and reconvene with the rest of the team. Went down as well. They've lost the grenades. They've lost, minus the one that's still in the pocket, 1E, 1D, 1 Ash charge. And most of the fighting has happened kind of far away from even the vertical side of the site.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that G2 hasn't been droning it. It's just they don't look like they can do anything with it. But G2 answers back very quickly. Lagonis and Palu, last two alive. Now all of a sudden it's Palu. Look at that. The round, which looked like it was going quite poorly for G2, is almost over.
I mean, kind of out of nowhere. There, really, it was a bit of a close down, and that's what we talk about this map. It goes from 0 to 50, and then even more so. He's trying to find the side of the fight. They're dancing over the angle of Chaz, and Virtue gets it out, and I'll be honest, you can see there's a lot of intensity there from the sides of G2. I didn't expect them to get that round from the position they found themselves in that early.
No, so G2 uses about 5 drones on that entire portion of the map upstairs, over by 90. They end up with 1 minute and 40 seconds left with a single drone. And I mean, take a look at this. Okay, so you drone out 90. You know you've got this complex network, complex in heavy quotes here, of rotates from Fountain all the way over towards break room and security. And G2 drones it out. They use 2 Lion charges. They lose 2 players, but then through the mid-round, they take these engagements with very limited intel. They don't even need to really pressure the bomb site at all.
That was, a second beep. But you know all about swearing on broadcast.
So do you?
I've never actually got to use one on
You
a
work with
major.
Hap?
I do work with Hap.
He swears on broadcast.
I know a lot. I know a lot about swearing on broadcast. I said it just before it sort of got into motion there that all the fighting had generally happened around CC, around 90. It's not directly above the vertical. You still have the pressure to get in underneath as well. You can see Virtue was rotating his way in from outside the southern face of the entire building. And then Alamau just jumps in above and gets a 2K. It's not something you can rely on, but that sort of highlights the point. And what has almost been missing from this roster is that attribution of, we're really good at shooting people in the face. Can we try and make it hit our opponents? Bit of a peek outside, hasn't netted anything, whether it's just a deployment of gadgetry or not. We're back towards the top floor for the first time.
With barbed wire to assist Nesk, who's now playing inside of security. So as we tend to see with the zombies in that spot, you can hide behind all of those Kiva barriers. Position yourself so that if somebody challenges you on that other side of the armory wall, on the security wall, which has been left soft, it appeared, gives Nesk a very advantageous spot to sit on. As for G2, they're going to be running with just a single hard breacher. Focus right now is quite heavily on break room and over towards security. 4 separate players, all surrounding that exterior wall.
You hear the candelas popping off. It's so much pressure around onto break. Volps got himself just tucked. They're angling for the fight, and he takes the first. Doki's dropped once again before he can make a big impact. They slip out as Nesk is drawing all the attention and eyes towards him. The pressure underneath of the nades is consistent with how they've done it. That's why Nesk can move away. He knows the game that they're going to play. He's kind of hoping he can get a bit of a catch on another loose player. Benja's watching underneath still. They're getting drones, waiting for intel, maybe waiting for a drop on the hatch itself, but this repositioning, reconvening, Alamau onto Sandwich, pressure onto Vents and AC. You can see G2 has very quickly had a mid-round talk there of, we need to alter this.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a lot of utility expended from G2 as well. They used 2 Candelas, they used a flash, Yana's down, they sent about 3 separate drones in too, and they don't find anything for it. They allow Nest to continue on in that place, basically unimpeded. He kills Benjamaster, so at least you're taking him down, but again, all that utility used, and you've only got a minute left in the round, but you're at a 4v4, so it's not terrible for them.
Very quick conversations, very quick motion, and the fight outside the site as Palu tries to step up to Blur, who has to back off. He's alone here, and he's got the kit. If he goes down, it's a big rotate to get it back, so Palu's under pressure from Sandwich as well, either side of the fight. But as that space he can play in shrinks, Alamau hops in, gets Volps once again. He's doubling down what he did last time around, ring around the rosies as resets gets Virtue on the opposite side. Alamau, that's 4, that's almost 5 across the sites in 2 rounds. Hitch beepers! We asked the question, where is Alamau at the start of this game? Well, he's knocked out of this one, but you cannot doubt the effect and impact he's had so far. Blur cannot find the space, looking for just a breath to put the kit, but Benja gets the kill instead.
Too much haste there for Liquid on the post plan, but honestly, G2 played that basically as perfect as you can get at that point. The call was made, hey, let's bail off a security, let's bail off a break room. Alimau says, I've got 2 Candelas. We don't have a ton of intel on the Armory bomb site, but you know what? If I throw some Candelas down and I can get in through that sandwich window, I can do some serious damage while the rest of G2 moves over towards office side and then gets 2 different players up on that Armory wall. Honestly, losing Nesk that early on left soft walls inside of security, left the 1 soft wall on Armory wall as well. And at that point, you can just walk right in. You've got the Selmas to take care of the rest of that reinforcement, and then the whole front of Armory is yours once you take care of Palu, or at least move him off of that spot. It was the latter that G2 did.
You called it very early, as well as the sort of idea of Benja's just sitting. He's played that first grenade. He's going to wait under the hatch as a trap that, you know, we didn't get the full read on the pressure that was coming around Nesk there. He has the option of the hatch rotate, but Benja sat there for at least 30 seconds, 45. It looked like a swing into the fight. Maybe Nesk didn't even have to take that. Think about where the ace was at that point. If Nesk was still putting pressure in that power position he had before, well, then suddenly Blur's not free to move up and pressure Palu as much. They've got to go for a different take and a different play, and that's where the break came through at the end here. Slight change. Nesk is trying to get himself a little bit more mobility, but once again, quick brace of impact towards the building itself and towards resets.
He's using the ITA shotgun, which is something we've seen from a couple different Solaces so far, but
Not your preferred.
I mean, I think you need to play it correctly. You're going to use Solus in a similar way that you see a Mute who's going to roam. You might see some other operators with shotguns. Pulse has used a shotgun before on some of these players. You know, I don't know if I like it as much as running the P90, but if you're going to play tight angles and you expect them to pressure you from a small spot, then it can work out.
Volps once again gets that strike early in. They've been pretty consistent at getting in the first engagement and finding success. It's just after that where everything falls apart and falls away from the position they were in. Instead of holding on this time, he's gone for the rotate so much quicker.
Yeah, I mean, G2 has surrendered the opening pick all 3 rounds so far. Their first part of this round after round after round for G2 has been quite miserable.
Yep.
You know, again, they have a lot more drones than they're used to, 4 right now. So they've got intel at their disposal. No Yana on the board, so you're going to have to rely on those drones more than just about anything else. But it's the mid-round where G2 flourishes. That's the point that we're at right now. We'll see if Liquid can actually turn it around, because this is the Vents bomb site. So as G2 works through that top floor, yeah, you've been picked off by 1 player, but you've got to get the rest of them before you can transition.
Sneaky camera as they wait for the steady beaten approach.
Towards the bomb site.
Yeah. Transition towards the bomb site.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I didn't look at you for anything else. You don't get these jokes from Pengu, I'm sorry.
Pengu doesn't have a sense of humor.
I mean, but he is the 2-time 20 seconds sell your computer. Can you sell me a computer? No.
I've got extra if you really want.
Blur is looking for the fight down from the vertical. 50 seconds and a cautious silence. And whether that's something that works well for G2 or not, because remember how Liquid has done this the past few rounds, is they've got angsty. They've sort of gone, well, we need to try and find an engagement. They found them, they've lost them, and then G2's taken the site in the round. So this time, Liquid sort of said, hang on a minute, we don't have to do that. Instead, let's sit and pretty before Benja takes our head off.
I mean, the one thing for G2 is that they've been clearing just the top floor. They haven't needed to clear 2 floors. This time around, having to clear 2 floors could be a bit of a challenge. They've taken out Volps. The mid-round where G2 usually flourishes is long since sailed by. And now you're in the late round. We haven't really gotten here with G2. How is it going to go for them?
Well, Nesk on the retake over the top. Palu gets Blur on the back end, but Alamau is right behind him. It's sort of that trade on trade game with Doki trying to pick up the pieces and finding a fight because everybody's confused. Alamau's down, so is Doki. And that extra time that Liquid are able to buy themselves buys them their first round, a bit of intensity, but this game, I feel, is just going to start getting intense.
2 incredibly storied franchises, 2 incredibly storied esports orgs, 2 incredibly storied rosters as well. It's always nice to see them living up to that hype. And of course, it's on the tertiary bomb site. Technically, every single site was open for Liquid.
Yeah.
They decided to go downstairs to Events and Workshop.
Famously, the easiest defense.
Yes, and they get it right. And again, this is the first time that we've seen G2 have to tackle 2 separate floors. The very first round, their big impediment, and I guess it's somewhat carried over a little bit to the second round as well, was that security component. Once you take care of security, the rest of this kind of all goes together. And despite the fact that it was Teller's Bathrooms as the first bomb site on the main floor, most of that action occurred on the second floor back in round number 1. Round number 2, obviously far more straightforward. That time around, it looked like there was just a lot of confusion from G2. A lack of confidence on the entry. They lost Virtue really early on. They couldn't recover. They struggled to take map control for about 1 minute and 40 seconds. And yeah, they still had utility to hit the site, but when Doki scrambled to get that diffuser, the big issue was that it just looked like they didn't have the idea of where the remaining Liquid players are, and you're struggling to get kills with so little time left, things are gonna get messy.
I'm hitting a button. Boop. It's the, oh my god, Nesk is on an MPX on border button. It's the classic button. It's the one that we've seen for a long time ago. Obviously, his roles have changed over the years, and he might be being found earlier than he thinks, but it's just so exciting to see because we've seen what he does. 2 drones on him, and he's gonna see if he can sneak his way out break. This is all being told and put forward. The E1D, now he knows he's being droned at least. He might not know that he's being watched from above and from the swing, but he takes the drop anyway. Safe move, whether he knew it or not.
It's 2 EE1Ds used in the first 40 seconds. I mean, so...
To try and catch a player who's just left as well.
Yeah, and I mean, this was the issue in round number 1. This was the issue in round number 2. Nesk was allowed to live for far too long. G2 looking quite limp on their entry. They've finally been able to take control of the top of East, but they're fighting shadows at this point. Nesk is long gone. He holds that for about 1 minute. He falls off. G2 are quite slow. Tons of time still for them to drone things out. But I mean, I guess the real benefit is that you've shoved Nesk back. There's a second player from Liquid still holding this spot though. That Avenue through the rotates as Volps. Nesk gets found out. That's the first pick for G2. After surrendering first blood to Team Liquid every single round, we're actually gonna get to see G2 hit this mid round right now with a numbers advantage.
That's very Nick Cage of you.
With a numbers advantage. Oh, they're going for the take.
Volps is waiting. Volps is waiting and being patient, and that's maybe the worry for G2.
That was
Because
my Nick Cage.
it was wonderful. I thought he was in the room with me. I was frightened. There was this moment of frighten around the side as well. They're cracking it open, but remember how G2 took this. They hopped in and got a double, and then suddenly we're putting pressure onto the side. This time, Liquid are going for the same retake take that was the take last time, and it was successful. Apart from that, reset's gone. Alamau is able to catch one out. They're watching on the stairs. They're watching on the rotate here. Do they have the awareness? They seem to have a vague idea.
That whole round hinged on Volps. 40 seconds left, 2 players left in the bomb site. They're just going to be playing to die. This basically might be a tomb, but nice pick from Lagonis. He's going to just further barricade himself inside a bathroom as Palu looks for the retake. And it's going to set up G2 really nicely, who don't have any utility really at all, but they're able to find the picks. And both Alimau and Doki get the final 2 picks there. Emmy, expertly done. Again, it's the mid-round where G2 really thrives, and as we start to get towards the execute, It's the inverse of the problems that we've seen over the first 2 rounds, whereas G2 looked like they struggled to get information and take on Liquid. That round in particular, it looked like, again, through the mid-round and onwards, that Liquid had no idea where G2 was coming from. And look at this, they just get caught out. I think the last 3 kills were all done when Liquid was looking in a different direction.
It's the change in the sort of wind, because G2 has struggled in getting that pace. Their malleable aggression, their tactics that won them the hammer, but a couple of months prior to where we are today, was built on the idea of seeing what there is around a minute 30 and then making sure that they're in positions to entirely change. The face is one that is a contorting dance of aggression that can hit any ballast. It's sort of the opposite of that old set up 20 seconds, execute. It's, well, we might do that, but also here's opportunity. Here's where this is. You're trying to sniff for clues like you're watching Blue's Clues and work out who did the murder. I haven't watched Blue's Clues. I don't know if there's a murder. It's a kids program. Probably not.
Typically not.
Typically not. It's not in the usual.
I don't think that children's programming.
Detective Blue on the case. What do you mean? Every single Disney parent
has to be a detective. There are clues.
Yeah, but...
Or at least a sleuth.
Blue's Clues sleuth?
Doesn't really flow.
No. Cancel.
We can workshop it.
We can workshop it. We've got time.
Workshop it. Very similar setup right now from Team Liquid on this bomb site, going back upstairs to Armory, but G2's brought some different tools.
Yes.
And instead of it being a dead set Armory take, big thing everybody's gonna notice, no hard breacher whatsoever for G2. Not even a hard breach gadget being brought. This is gonna be a very standard smoke OSA shield plant over towards office.
Benja's gonna try and cook this grenade right underneath. They were well prepped and well popped. Volp's gone. The player who was able to get those entry in the first 3 is now the death of the previous one. And here, as the blinds go over, get out of the way, Toki, you idiot. I need to plant. They're trying to get their way through. Recess gets Virtue through the soft. There's the C4 over the top. Can't quite get the execute because they popped in sandwich window at the same time. Alamau blinding on the back of the execute. They're going to go for the retake. Lagonis, no. Opts to move away from Workshop as Workshop gets a kill. Missed moment there, and now it's just Lagonis. 3 versus 1 post-plant. The command of the site there was entirely driven by G2. They hopped in, and I'm going to be honest, as someone who watches EUL a lot, this isn't the most uncommon take. A pistol pulled out on the back of Dawn. They now have the watch behind the Oster shield and the Talon shield inside the site. No impact to break it across. Blur can play this as aggressive as he wants. Sprays through the side, loses the fight. Lagonis is now tucked onto it. He's got 17 seconds. Benja has to come for the rotate. Benja has to go all the way wide. They can just hold on and get the defuse!
Well, I mean, there's certainly a lot there that we can discuss. First half of the round for G2 looked fantastic. They put presence over towards Armory. They get players in down below. That first pick from the nade dislodges one of the players inside of Archives. And then what ends up happening? You do what everybody else does. You get the OSA shield right in. G2's coverage is excellent. You've got the players down below as well, as you can see from Benjamaster. But the problem with this is that the big blind site was where Benja was, allowed Lagonis to go past. And then nobody had intel on Lagonis retaking through metal. And instead of holding them off, G2 decided to engage and engage and engage. There was a lot of ugly gunfights between both teams, but Lagonis won it and then used the shield to his advantage. I don't know if Benja was just playing from down below or if Lagonis was just a bit quicker and the comms didn't go out for G2 fast enough to get Benja back.
I mean, okay, I know I briefly highlighted on it when, to be honest, I thought the round was lost. It was a 3 versus 1.
That absolutely should have been a G2 round.
They had the verticality.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, the hop in on sandwich with the candelas. Sometimes it'll be, you know, the quick zip instead. But it was just with the vertical control. It wasn't even planted on concrete, so they could watch it from underneath if they wanted to put pressure onto someone going for the counter defuse. They really had everything there, apart from teamwork and coordination. And they're up against Lagonis.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been calls again. I don't know why Benjamaster was caught out so badly as he was. I guess he just assumed that the rest of the team would get it done. It was a 3v1. You're in such a favorable position. Why G2 did not have a player out on balcony either watching from the other angle is kind of a mystery to me.
Blur on the wide swing on the Oster shield as well.
Yeah, not smart.
No, not good.
You had 3 separate opportunities to stop Lagonis, and it just could not be done.
Nobody can stop Lagotinus. What about La Solis?
I mean, he's died 3 times.
Okay, minus those
Stopped 3 separate times.
fake news. Benjamaster. actually having a pretty good game so far.
Oh!
Blur is the one actually who gets caught there. I thought it was Benja, but Nesk gets Blur. Benja is still standing. They saw the glimpse go past, and now, once again, well, they didn't need the hard breach on the previous round. They got the kit down, but they don't have the option this time around. It's gone. Candela's pop on the back. Doki's looking for a fight inside Armory. They're trying to find a loose player here. Ooh, and there is one. Parlu just backed in. And Kapkan is a very thick boy.
Volps roaming from above alongside with Nesk. They will hold that control for as long as they can, and Volps punishing Ali Mao is excellent. Because not only does Ali Mao have 9 kills, Emmy, but also the Candelas, which will be integral for flushing the players either out of the roam spots or, more importantly, clearing out the bathroom portion of this site. Once you take archives, you can open up that hatch. You have so much influence over bathroom down below you, and that's where the Candelas really become super helpful, along with the office hatch too. And now you're gonna have to do it without that. You've lost your smokes, you've lost your Candelas. That's a huge blow to G2.
And it's sort of that formulaic idea of, well, how do they solve this problem? Do they try and throw themselves in as they've done before? Well, Doki is able to get the kill there onto Volps. The only hatch that they've popped open now has an eye line down onto site, but they still have control of the bathrooms. They can't just take the drop without somebody being behind them. Nesk is watching from the corridor as well. You can see Liquid has set themselves around, and they can do just that. Nesk strikes Virtue on the side underneath, I think that might have been. Through the gap, yeah, it was. Doki has to now recollect 30 seconds. He has to watch the opposite side of the map to where the site actually is. That's how much pressure Liquid is putting everywhere else.
It's not a good going right now for G2, especially with Benja needing to get that goo out of his foot. And Doki has the diffuser, by the way, with 15 seconds to go. So the moment that Doki goes down the bottom of the stairs, he's as good as dead. There it is. Resets finishing him off. Mid-round for G2, ultimately falling apart. It was the benefit for them for so long, but I don't know if you can mentally reset after that previous round with the blunder that was made. Liquid regains top 4 control after Doki had left. They basically swap whether you're on the floor or the bottom. Glad to see Nesk fired up. The first half goes to neither team. 3-3.
Bit of spiciness. The thing is, if you're a team from the Latin American region and you go up against Alamao, you'll end up in a shouting match.
Yeah.
It could be the tamest game. It doesn't even have to be Siege. You can be playing like chess. And I feel like Alamao would find a way to have a good old yell with his Portuguese-speaking brethren.
You know, the funny part is that if it was Benja who had the diffuser, there was nobody within a 7-second play of stopping the diffuser from going down. So Doki has it. He's upstairs. Doki likely picked it up after the diffuse carrier had died, which is fine. You need to get somebody in that position. But, I mean, the bigger issue is that you're nowhere near the bomb site. Benja has control, can't get the diffuser down.
We have a quick technical timeout. Halftime. Do you have any halftime oranges?
Halftime oranges?
See, okay. I'm bringing UK references. Did you grow up playing a sport? Hockey?
Did we play hockey?
Hockey? With Jesse J. Chick?
I don't know if he plays hockey.
I don't know. He loves hockey.
He's an Alberta boy. He absolutely loves hockey. He was overjoyed at the fact that the Edmonton Oilers advanced 2 nights ago. Leafs did as well.
Sorry, this is just Sportscast. We're just updating you.
Just in case anybody hasn't been following
Other
the
sports. No, but he's more Canadian than you, I'm sorry to say.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, he says a lot.
He does have a Canadian twang, that's for sure.
He does have a twang. He's like the...
He's a very obvious.
He's like the Canadian version of a cowboy, I guess. Like...
Well, that's what they say about Alberta. Alberta's the Texas of Canada.
Yeah, I can see that. He's the Sam of the Canadian talent.
Ah, yes, of course.
We have a technical timeout. We'll be back in soon.
Don't know why.
We don't know why.
We don't know why. We would tell you if we knew.
Yeah. Drone
The drones had all become bugs.
issues, which is grim.
Drone out of your pocket.
Grim strikes again.
It becomes a bunch of bees.
Is that was it? I can't remember if that was announced or. You know when you're trying to remember what you can talk about.
Grim is in the game. You might not know it because Grim has never played. Grim is in the game. I don't know if that's what you're asking. And he does indeed shoot bees.
He does.
So which are bugs.
Yeah.
So everything you've said is correct.
He hasn't been played yet this tournament. On the grounder stage, the Titan.
Now I'm curious what you weren't supposed to say. Just spill it.
What?
Just say it in front of everybody.
I mean, I know he needs some.
There are hundreds and hundreds of people watching this.
He needs some TLC, because he's not. He's below average. Is that the nicest way of putting it?
As an
Grim
operator?
sucks. Grim is bad. He sucks. He's not in a good place.
No.
But, physically.
From a...
Mentally, I think he's great.
I don't know where he is mentally. I'm not going to speak for him.
I'm not Harry.
But-
Nobody is. Harry's dead.
Oh, you're talking about Harry... Rainbow Harry.
Yeah, did you not watch the big cutscene?
No.
Oh. You don't read lore.
I don't care at
can't
all about lore in
read.
any... That is not... I don't know why that's where you settle on. I can absolutely read.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I was hooked on phonics.
What?
Do you not have phonics in the UK? Hooked on phonics?
What's phonics? Is that like Animorphs?
No, it's a... Anyway.
R.L. Stein. Goosebumps.
Great series.
Great series, the Goosebumps books.
Are You Afraid of the Dark also?
Yes.
Great series.
Oh. You're talking about the books. 3 apiece. We have no bands on the top middle. So
Let's hope they don't pick them!
so the bands off the top of my head, you've written them down.
I have. Do you want to take a guess? I have them in front of me right here, right now. We're playing a game show. These are the 4 operators banned in G2
This is like
versus
one of the
Liquid.
only times I haven't written them down.
Hey, everybody, I'm Carter Lynx here.
Hi, here's a quote. I like how Carlex introduces the NA teams. Like, here's Space Station Gaming, and here's European side M&M, because he doesn't know anyone outside of NA.
Bans were Dokkaebi and Mira, banned out by Team Liquid, G2, Flores, and Kaid. So it's now up to the teams to not pick them. Hopefully they don't.
I was going to guess that. So, all 4 of them.
No way of knowing.
I was going to guess all 4 of them. Well, I was like, Solid, no, they were allowed. Vap, no, they were played. Ying, no, they were played. So,
Ying's been a staple, actually, for G2.
can't get rid of her.
Coming in right now for Lagonas.
And what we had a little bit of a flirt with, goodbye, Palu. What we had a little bit of flirt with before was the Azami at the very beginning, and it just was not working for Nesk. They could not slow it down. Doki is going to see if they can pick up the mantle, and by the mantle, I mean knives that explode. And so does Nesk. Exploded by Virtue, who was just holding the swing on the top angle. That's 2 Liquid bodies lost here. No fight really back against either of them. And well, as Alamouth does get caught from the vertical, they've just shoved their way into the site, and that's not good. This is bad.
That is the strongest...
How does he miss it?
That is the strongest castle I have ever seen.
Imagine if it was Castle, but with his like shouting audio. You know, who was like, ah! But just like constantly. The response to that clip. Socials, you need to post that clip. Oh, I don't know if they're allowed. Post that clip and be like, how do they miss these shots? And then it's the shot 1 to 6, clearly missed. Shot 7 to 8, shoulder.
Now, here's a troubling prospect for G2. We've just been told that we are just completely replaying the round. What?
Were you told?
Yeah, in my
Okay.
ears.
Okay, cool. I wasn't told.
They just said we're replaying the round.
Ah,
That's what
okay.
I heard in my
I
ears.
trust you. I don't trust him.
Look at me.
Yeah?
I'm the admin now.
Oh, you're the guy that makes... So anytime an admin decision goes bad, they should message you.
No,
It's Hap.
it's out.
Okay.
Yes. Unfortunately for G2, their entire defensive setup has likely been read by Team Liquid. Now Team Liquid are going to start the round again back at a 5v5 as far as we're aware. And on top of that, they will now go into that round with a more intimate knowledge of the workings of G2's defense, which again, just like we saw from Team Liquid on attack, and I imagine will be pretty standard through the remainder of this matchup. Most of the emphasis is going to be on holding down that security/CCTV portion of the map. And now, even though you've got the attacker repick, Liquid can bring even more to deal with it if they'd like.
See, I do have the question there.
Yes, what's your question?
Is it a pure replay in that everyone can repick operators as well from the get-go? Because obviously a standard replay is when everyone's still alive, and sometimes it's during the prep phase and defenders have to be locked. Team, so same picks both sides.
G2 was in a 5v3. That's going to be erased.
4 versus 3.
4 versus 3 at the very end. Yes, that's correct.
And
But they would have killed the castle, so that was very...
Well, he seemed he was doing okay.
Just, no. Well, we're just getting all the players back in the server. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you.
With Flores being banned, you got operators like Castle are going to see even more value. You're going to see an Azami get way more value, infinitely more value. You can't really bring a Brava to deal with these operators either, because Brava obviously lacks those explosives to deal with it, and most importantly, the clutch drone can't take a castle barricade, can't take a Kiba barrier. The fewer electronics that are in there, the less value you get out of a Brava. Of course, you can still bring her to take care of a couple default cams, and there will be some gadgetry presumably set down at some point. So you gain value in that regard, but a suboptimal pick across the board. Team Liquid favoring explosives. You got to do that when there's an Azami on the board, because most of these players on both of these teams, and now it'll be G2 obviously for the remainder of the match unless we go to overtime, they're going to position those Kiba barriers and then play off of them rather than use them for area denial. They might plug a hole with them or throw it at a door, but by and large, from what we saw from both of these teams, is that those Kiba barriers are going to be used to directly defend one of the players behind it, similar to a deployable shield. You got to bring explosives to deal with that. You're not going to get close enough to melee it, or else you're going to die, because there's going to be somebody right there.
It does suck to die. I have an entirely unrelated question.
You have experience?
Yes. Imagine for a second.
Imagine it.
Imagine, close your eyes. Okay. If Brava could steal any gadget to be used from attacker or defenders, what would be the funniest? They could just use the gadget. They were just like a mimic rather than
any gadget whatsoever.
any gadget. So you just have pretty much 2 of that person in effect.
Well, I mean, are you talking funny or are you talking strategic element?
Well, strategic would be boring because then you just have like 20 Dokkaebi calls going through. We are reviewing the round right now. There may be a point.
Beep, 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 beep.
Why are we reviewing it in the 20s?
Breaking news! The round is under review.
Can we cut to VAR?
The admins are currently discussing whether or not there will be a point given for that round. I honestly don't know. We can obviously speculate. In my eyes, as much as it would hurt G2 to replay the round, I don't think it is necessarily fair in my eyes to give the round to either team based on what we saw. There are too many unknowns with the time left, the gadgetry left, and the players left to make a proper decision, in my opinion. But I'm not an admin. The admins can decide however they like. The players have to adhere to it unless they protest or then they start physically fighting the admins, and then I don't actually know what happens there.
I don't know what happens either.
What would happen if one of the players just ripped off their headset and then they started fighting one of the admins? I don't know.
Is Fresh around? They usually know things.
I'd like to note that the host and analysts are very pro-violence right now and are actually
Very
making
pro-violence.
gestures towards fisticuffs.
Even though Ollie, we labeled the gentle giant,
He's a giant.
the big man from the big north,
The North.
he just dropped his pen. This is well, casters don't have anything to talk about. They'll cast their environment, and then we get locked in a box.
I ate the spiciest tuna of my life yesterday.
Did you fight it first?
Well, no, I was here at
like a
catering.
bear
Did
wrestling.
you try it yesterday at catering? The spicy tuna?
I don't think I
Spicier
did.
than you thought it was.
I'm
People
not.
are like, oh, it's spicy tuna. I'm like, okay, how spicy could it be? Much spicier than I thought.
What's the? What was the level? What could you compare it to? If anything?
It was probably like right underneath habanero.
Wow.
In terms of like heat level.
For a tuna, that's a bit spicy.
Yeah, I don't know what they do to them.
It's just the water they grew up in. They grew up in a volcano.
We actually, we distill it with Fireball whiskey.
These fish are real unhealthy,
Cut them up.
but they're so cool on a night out.
Oh.
Talking about nights out, happy Workers' Day to everybody in Denmark.
Happy Workers' Day!
Happy Workers' Day, 1st of May.
Solidarity with the workers abroad.
We're with you.
We have a decision.
We've been handed the winner. No, we haven't. That's just a card.
This is, I don't know what is that XD is a signature? Oh, it stands for X-Defiant.
Okay.
We're merging. Folks, we have a decision. The round is being replayed in its entirety.
Bwam! I thought I would add some.
Would you like to read the cue card?
I will read it.
Maybe not the bottom.
Liquid G2 not played at all this year.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Thank you. It's a full operator in site replay. Does that mean everybody has to pick the same thing, same site? Cool. Yes,
What else could that
does.
mean?
I don't know. Like, if
What?
I'm...
Let's go down the rabbit hole here. What else do you think that could possibly mean? Full site, full operator replay.
When I'm picking an operator on that joyous screen with the seconds I have, I feel like I'm playing a little mini game of click the square quicker than the person in my random queue can steal an operator. But no. Maybe I'm the strange one. Maybe it's...
Well, you are English.
Maybe it's true. Can't.
Okay.
Oh, I just saw something different written in chat.
What did you see?
I'm not gonna say until I get confirmation from production. But the admins typed something different in chat. We'll see what happens when we get
I believe what they said was subscribe to twitch.tv/rainbow6 with your Prime Gaming sub.
They can pick new ops.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
was right. I'm doing a kicking dance. You can't see it at home, but you can imagine it that I'm gloating in front of Parker's face.
Such range.
We're never gonna cast together again.
We're in the game!
Woo! Thank you for bearing with us. Bear down.
So even though we said same site, same ops, and you said, can I confirm? That means that they can't pick new ops. And then they said yes. And I said, what could that possibly mean? It turns out that information was actually incorrect. They are allowed to pick new operators, and I think that's a pretty fair decision.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was, okay, so if you're unfamiliar with the rule book to the level that we are, because, well, it's our job, it makes sense. If a round is in motion and action hasn't properly started yet, so if nobody has died or whatever, so say they spawn in and there's a bug, you can rehost the round, but you got to pick the same operators, because at that point, there hasn't been a confrontation. As soon as first blood passes, and it was once upon a time a 15-second rule, that's when the round usually has to have a more formulated decision. Here, it was a 5 versus 3 that turned into a 4 versus 3. We saw a fight that was about to happen. Liquid saying it would have been a 3-3. G2 saying, no, shut up. And then the argument, and that's why we're here, because this is the fairest way.
We believe in fairness.
Just forget everything that happened in the last 20 minutes, people at home.
Has it? No way it's actually been that long. No way it's been 20 minutes.
I'm just guessing. I'm just making things up. Lagonis on the Candelas on the back end. Palu's going to see if they can open up vents. It's same site, the armory pressure. As they look over the top, they're going to see if they can just try and maybe pull a bit of a sharp strike towards the site itself. Maybe they read just how little was on the defense of the site, and instead they're sort of saying, well, why don't we do what they were doing? Oh, the Candelas want to go. They're ripped and ready.
Down on the player cams, you can all see them looking at each other's monitors, so they get some advanced intel. You know, you pop a UAV, basically. I like these changes right now from T-Liquid, rather. The Candela is obviously a staple here. The smokes go out. Nesk on gridlock. You can conceal a plant with the sounds of those track stickers, but would you look at this? They're already in the site.
Nesk is able to get one kill with the gridlock on the back end, and as I said, they sort of read that G2 did not have a lot inside the site itself. There's a bulletproof that's watching a smoke and a bit of coverage, but the problem is, where's the kit? Still sitting outside sandwich window, and that needs to make its way in. They're trying to find its way through. Alamal's underneath. They could cause some problem. If they get a run out and hit that player, well, they could pull everything out of this approach, because Lagonis, the longer he sits here, the more dangerous, the more worrisome the whole system becomes. They want to get a route through. Kiva barricade gets deployed. Resets gets a bit of a shake through. Alamal finds Vaults, which is, I think, the cover for the run out underneath. It is. Benja finds Palu. They're finally in, getting the plant on the back end, but now it is just them left. The start of this push from Liquid was so good, so succinct, so adapt, so everything was Liquid, and then G2 put him in a cup and threw him out the window.
You know, I was going to be a little bit critical of the fact that Team Liquid had armory wall control for about 40 seconds or so. They'd expended Candelas. There'd been a bevy of smoke that had been unleashed as well. But I think the apprehension came from two things. Number one, they were worried about small office. Maybe they hadn't droned it out. Maybe they were worried about an Oryx being on the board, hopping up through the hatch, which looked actually to be the strategy that G2 was about to use. But more importantly, you pointed it out, the case was not on armory wall. And that's because I doubt Resets thought spot, I'm gonna be able to walk in for free. G2 were playing far enough back inside a fountain, but they created those lines of sight so that while they weren't physically holding those parts of the maps, they were still able to see them. And then of course, Liquid weren't that focused on clearing out downstairs and ended up being their undoing. And unlike what we saw from Benjamaster when G2 was on attack, G2 were much faster to get back up to that top floor this time around, not wanting to commit the same mistake. And Team Liquid got caught in the mid-round trying to go for an execute. And as Liquid were mid-scramble, G2 took those engagements over towards Office, over towards Fountain, on main stairs, leaving Lagonis as the last player left inside of Armory.
You know, it's so strange because you sort of look at how the breakdown of things happened. They had 1 kill, they had full site control, then they had a minute, including 2 semi-executes of throwing down smokes, throwing down utility. Sure, there was a keeper barricade that hit sandwich window and did stop some of that motion, but, you know, 5 seconds of a 50-second hold and shout really isn't fantastic. Here is a much shorter, sharper drive towards the site as the cap cans get stolen. Alaman's going to see if he can try and not be a victim of his own crime.
This is Brava showing up is actually quite fascinating, as we talked about how Brava in a lot of ways is relying on what the defense brings. That's the strength of this operator repick showing up, is because you say, okay, they've got an abundance of gadgets. Let's bring it over. And Alamau literally walks into his own Capcan trap, so there's already value here. The thing is if you look at this lineup from G2, there's again 2 operators that you can't really get a ton with the clutch drones, but you've got cams, you've got black eye cams, and then most importantly, you've got these EDDs. So if there is a post plant that G2 tries to reposition on, if enough of those EDDs are taken out, they're gonna die from it. G2 gets the first pick though, down goes Volps, and that's a huge first pick because that's the Ying off the board.
Yep, that is that short, sharp execute gone, the tip of the spear for both teams so far, and it's the first off the board without even really being able to let loose. They're trying to put pressure onto Benja here on the Office side, resets underneath. They want to draw some of those players, make them uncomfortable, maybe force a bit of rotate and motion and say, well, we're going to put pressure onto the site, as Lagonis is inside the site. They're with the kit, but they're pretty much alone. Blur and Doki went out their fights. Resets does get his, but now the kid is once again cold. Elsewhere, at least it's locked in the site itself. 4 versus 2 with 1:10 left. They don't have vertical. They don't have sight. They don't know about Alamau. He's hiding. He's waiting. Oh, he misses the pre-fire round. Goes to the pistol. Virtue's watching the angle from the top down. And what do you do here, Liquid? They don't know.
Decide to reposition. They find Alamau just fine. You're going to let Palu take 1v1s, you're going to get punished for this. He's already won a single one, and now he's going to come to a head with Doki. Diffuser down, Palu's left inside of the site, but it's a 3v1 Emmy. Knows the Azami's coming, he loses it to Doki on the pre-fire. Bear in mind, this very much could be match point if G2 had prevailed and not made such a significant mistake in the post plant all the way back in round number 5. That doesn't bode well for Liquid. They've called their timeout, and I don't fault them whatsoever. It's not too late. They've still got 2 rounds left. The strategy for Liquid so far has been a bit shaky. Both of these teams obviously showing some issues with communication, but I think the big one for both teams so far has been information. They have both been exceptionally bad teams at keeping their drones alive, which is what hurts you through that mid to late round, and right now, it just simply looks like in terms of gunfights, G2 is far more confident. Alamau, I think, just broke 10 kills. Doki's sitting at 8 or 9 kills. He might have broken double digits as well. It's hard to tell with the rehost. So you're gonna have to try to instill into this Team Liquid squad that you're playing on border Hell in a Cell. You know it's gonna get real frag heavy, real fast. Keep those drones alive. Guide your players in. We're not seeing any mutes, we're not seeing any Mozzies, so there's no reason why you can't have somebody immediately follow up on that, though both teams seem to be throwing drones at problems and not getting any value from it.
It's almost the best map for G2 to come to try and remember how they play this game. We've obviously seen them sort of have a cafe that went pretty much all the way, and then they were able to win it out. A bank that didn't, with its sort of big crawl space around half of the map itself. And here on border, this malleable firefight gameplay of, well, we can find a lot of 1v1s. And you said, okay, you don't want to take a 1v1 with Palu, sure. But the ones that they're being handed first aren't the ones with Palu. It's the ones with the sort of more fringe parts of the push in some regards. They're getting these kills off site. G2's having time to think. And it's a rare, dangerous commodity for some of them, especially on a map like Border, where they can sort of minimize the think to action, and now we're in action, and that is when they really start to spark to life.
Look at the other side of it. It's that Brava pick that we highlighted very briefly in the previous round was quite suboptimal. You know, I said, okay, well, they can take out the EDDs, they can take out the Valkyrie cameras. I understand the idea behind it. If you're going to assume that G2 will play for a post plan, as they did all the way back in their very first defense, then a Brava to take out either those flank cams or the EDDs so that they work against the attackers is actually a brilliant idea, but you had to deal with a better roam clear. That's been the big struggle for both of these teams. And in terms of roam clear, yeah, Brava brings additional drones. You get more intel out of it, but I do think that there are better operators that they could be bringing to the table. Problem is they're kind of boxed in because the Dokkaebi is banned out and Lion has already been brought so frequently. The only thing you could really rely on is maybe a Jackal. For a lot of teams, Border's just too small of a map for Jackal to see the value that they want, and that could be the thinking behind Team Liquid deciding not to use that operator on the roam clear.
Nesk under a lot of pressure here. He's aware that they're aware that he's aware, and Benja's aware, but he's there and no more. Nesk swings around, is able to get the take for a lot of the cost of health there, and it was a lot of time around that Valk, around the IQ, put it on the camera, pulled against, they went for the risk, and they've lost. But they've done some damage and put some caution into it. Solace is gone, 1:30, and the pressure starts to hit towards Armory. Remember, this is the post-timeout Liquid called. This is the tertiary site as well. We're trying to find and build behind the back of mistakes made by Liquid, because if this one goes away, and we go back to Armory, and we go to a 6-3, it's very tough for Liquid.
Yeah, this is the last bomb site before the cycle renews, so yeah. Interesting how both teams are playing these tertiary sites. For now, for G2, while they might have surrendered that first pick, they answer back onto resets. I would say out of all the targets on the board, taking care of the Ashe is relatively low priority, but at least you get one player down to even things out with a minute to go.
Who are they trying to put the pinch onto? It's a straight swing round to this army, but they've already built themselves up this little safety box. They're happy to hold the angles. As said, it wasn't really a gadget used massively well by Liquid, and they swapped off it pretty quick. But here, they're able to reconstruct along with the castle. They're turning Border into a blockade of barriers and banisters that Liquid's trying to bash their way through, but they just can't find an angle. They can't find a route. It's what is a normal, simple map turned into a maze that's littered with dangerous minotaurs wearing G2's emblem that are more than happy to strike and take their prey. Nesk might be the next caught. It's actually Lagonis on the front door. Nesk finds a fight leading in, but it's coming around from his left and from behind him. And that is now map point.
I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record here, Emmy, but I watched on the right side of the screen how many times was Liquid on drones, and it was almost never in that round in particular. I mean, obviously when you get down to a 4 or 3 player count, it's a grab bag of whether or not, or it's a crapshoot of whether or not you have enough drones to actually get that information. But again, Liquid not putting people on drones, walking in, not droning out CCTV, not droning out security, having a general idea of where G2 is, but not doing anything to get rid of it. And you have no follow-up gadgets at all to flush them out, even if you did have that information. G2 was running, or rather Team Liquid was running something like 12 breaches in that round. Like, I understand that it's a tellers, washrooms attack, and you're gonna want to tear up as much of that floor as possible. But you had a buck. You can bring a sledge every single round if you want to. Like, Liquid are not just picking suboptimal operators, but they're also just not playing a structured game right now. I understand as well that while you have an incredibly talented team and you've got players like Nesk and Palu and then the rest of the cast as well can all hit their shots, but if you don't know where G2 is, you're not going to be able to do much with it. And while G2 have had struggles on their own with intel, it was really obvious in that previous round that Liquid were flying blind, and it burned them almost every single time.
Well, the swap onto the Ashe to see if maybe they can try and remove some of those troublesome and meddlesome barriers I talked about. It's almost like they're playing into the game that G2 wants to play. And yeah, it's G2's defense, but this is Border. it's one of those maps where you wonder, maybe they did mean to put a couple more hard walls in. Maybe it's a little bit undercooked for some of the team's preferences, but at the same time, if the preference is one where you can bring these army, you can bring the castle, you can set up structure in it, and it's not being tested, then all you do is have more creativity, more option, and opted routes that they're forcing themselves to play. Delkey's drawing some attention here towards the top of the eastern stairs, pulls himself back, but he's plenty time and plenty safe as the drone just gets caught out.
The focus right now for Team Liquid seems to be on this A-bomb site. The Bulbs will get a good idea of what's in there, immediately find Benjamaster. The Lion has not been very successful for either team. Right now, obviously, it's Liquid rocking it on attack. And there's just, again, there's no real follow-up. Look at the right side of your screen. Yeah, there's only three drones remaining for Liquid. Nice pick on Alimau. Maybe shouldn't have decided to engage on Ines from that position on top of East Stairs, and now Doki could meet the exact same fate in this position. He actually wins it. And he gets 2 for the price of 1. Have the round to go, and Liquid's in trouble.
I mean, just that retake, that bit of momentum. They had the first, then they started hitting down the castles we called for before, and oh no, the floor's fallen out from underneath them, and they've rebuilt behind it. Again, the structure, the demonstration of, I know you struggled with her, but we are just fine. Putting these keepers down on these angles and doors. A minute left. The 3 remaining Liquid players since the rehost have only been able to find 1 kill between all of them. No grenades left as well. You've still got 2 C4s in the pocket of the side of G2. They could leave, set up shop elsewhere, and win this from underneath. I'm not entirely sure where the cams might be if they're still up and operational. There goes 90 cam with 40 seconds left.
Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect time for them to get down below, but it looks like the gunfights are all they really care about, leaving just Palu in a 1v4. These 2 Titans collide, but honestly, it was the G2 show. Their best performance so far here in Phase 2, and they make Liquid look not like gods, but like mortals.
I mean, I really didn't expect it. I think that's the sort of strange swing of it there, is the game almost ended in a bit of a whimper. You wanted a fight, you wanted a slug match. We talk about how great they are, unfortunately not today. Well, at least on the side of Liquid. But G2, put your shoes on, get on, there's more work to be done. Not for us though, we're gonna go for a quick break.
Well, G2 were able to take down Team Liquid. Now, Alimau, try not to get distracted by everybody trying to garner your attention, but I need to ask you, having not played versus Liquid at all this year, what were the kind of expectations heading into this matchup?
I mean, the expectations were that they're a really good team, so the map ban was a little bit difficult against them. They surprised us, I think, banning Theme Park and Sky even with the defense start. I was thinking that they would choose these maps. So the border was really quite a surprise, but we were ready for it.
And what's the kind of motivation and like regional pride like playing against an entire team of players from the same region as you?
Yeah, I mean, playing against Brazilians is always very, very nice. Like I feel like a great energy playing against Brazilians, but especially against Lagones, that it was my ex-teammate. Also like Volps, also like my friend, and Paulo, like my rival. So I do think it's really nice energy when we go against these guys.
Do you feel like it gives you a better read of how they play as individuals, obviously because they were ex-teammates?
Yeah, of course. Even like me and Lagones, like we share like the same ideas, so I think we understand each other very well. So sometimes I know how he thinks, he knows how he thinks, so it's pretty similar.
Okay, so I got to ask you on that round 5, if you can cast your mind back during that ninja defuse that Liquid were able to get against you guys. What happened? Was it a miscommunication, mistiming? What was that?
I mean, to be honest, I knew Lagones would stick because he always stick on the situations, and I even said he's gonna stick. But then Benja, he just didn't run fast enough, I think. I don't know.
And my final question for you is, stats-wise, you had a way better performance today, especially compared to the previous days. Tell us your secret, what's changed for you?
I mean, today I just try hard. I think yesterday night I went like 5 hours analyzing them, and for the other teams I just didn't care that much. So I think put more effort, I think, on this match.
All right, amazing. Well, another 5 hours we're expecting out of you for tonight as well. Nah, not needed. Well, congratulations once again, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
What do we think? 5 hours? That's easy, right? That's pretty standard.
It's a pretty standard gaming session, I would
Does
say.
that mean if I dedicate 5 hours a day, I'll be good as good as G2?
Maybe in 3 years.
All right, 3 years. I'll take that one. I'll take it. How did we feel about that matchup? Obviously, it was a little bit hectic to start with, and we had a little bit of a slowdown. Pacing slowed right down. How do we think it ended up panning out?
I feel like G2 had a good read of the situation, coming out with, being aware of some roam going on from W7M, or how they set themselves up for a retake strat, and they were able to read into that. They had so much information as well on their own attacks, so you constantly see those yellow pings with drones they had overviewing those Liquid players. They were able to play off of that very well. You had indeed that ninja defuse in round 5 that Lagones got away with, which maybe hurt the mental of G2 a little bit. But then, if you transfer onto their own defenses, right, it was 3-3 at the split, but they won every single round after the defense, which kind of is in line with former performances of G2 on this map, being so good on the defense, also against M&M during the UL.
Now, on the flip side of that, X, talk to me about the Team Liquid attacking strats.
Well, they were lacking today.
Or lack thereof.
Liquid didn't pick up a single round on the attack. That was in part due to a number of things. We've got the ban coming in there. We've got the Dokkaebi ban that G2 brought out, obviously removing that very high pick rate operator. It forces you into other things, forces you into a lie-in, and that's just not going to cut it when you're talking about G2's playstyle. We know that G2 are very capable of playing solo. They're very capable of collapsing as a team. And that synergy was there on the defense for them as well. So for me, Liquid, they really looked quite slow today. There wasn't too much bite in a lot of these attacks, and a very poor trade game, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they did get the entries in most of their games, but then the conversion towards a round win really wasn't there today for Liquid. And indeed, as you mentioned, that Dokkaebi ban, it really allowed those G2 players to play so solo, to play very far off the real bomb side. Really, I've seen, for example, I think it was Blur once playing in CSTV. There's a single player of Liquid outside. Blur wins the gunfight. There's no one indeed there to retake that position or retake that gunfight, and that's how you get away with it if you don't have the Dokkaebi against you.
Now, for the side of G2, obviously they had previously lost versus SSG, but to see them win versus an opponent like Team Liquid, it's like worlds apart. What do you think the key takeaway? Do you think they've just come into this looking pretty hot now?
I think so, yeah. I think a bit of a slow start, really, from G2, obviously. They didn't play in the play-ins. They came and qualified directly into Phase 2. So that game against SSG was the first game of the major, first game in a while. You've got all the travel and all the coordination to get people in position. So I think, yeah, a little bit of a warm-up game almost there for that SSG one. They've got into the M&M game. Bit of a war, but they got out of it unscathed. Now they're coming up against Liquid. They've just beaten them. It can only go from strength to strength here. You've got to look at this team and remember why they won SI only in February.
Well, of course, that was our 1-1 record matchup. Now is the fun part. We head into the 2-0 matchups. And coming up shortly, I love this, we're running on an accelerated schedule, which means we've got VP taking on FaZe as well. Do you feel like it's going to be a close matchup or pretty dominant? Because I feel like
It should be.
clashing of heads. Do you think it's going to be close?
Well, we're in 2-0 now, so one team's got to lose. This is going to be a first one of these teams here at the Copenhagen Major. Can't wait to see which team it's going to be.
Of course, worth remembering and noting that one out of these two teams will be the very first team to make it through to the finals, where they'll be joined by 7 others. I cannot wait for this one. You're not going to want to miss it.